The Galactic Council. In the Grand Amphitheater of the Galactic Council headquarters, representatives from 100 spacefaring civilizations gathered. Insectoid Kilteri clicked their mandibles, avian Zauri ruffled their iridescent feathers, and silver-skinned Argonians stood in solemn silence. High Counselor Zalek, an ancient Argonian, stepped to the podium. "We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years," he intoned, his metallic voice resonating through the chamber. "In that time, we have conquered every known threat, every fear. We have brought order and stability to a once chaotic universe." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. They were the most advanced civilizations in existence, their technology so sophisticated it bordered on magic, their wisdom hard-won through millennia of experience. What was there left to fear? And yet, whispers had begun to circulate about a new species on the galactic stage. Bipedal, relatively primitive, but spreading rapidly from their home system. Humans, they called themselves. Zalek raised a silver hand for silence. "Some have expressed concerns about these newcomers," he said. "But I assure you, they are nothing we have not faced before. They will learn their place, as all young races do, or they will fade into oblivion." The counselors nodded, secure in their superiority. They had shaped galaxies and tamed suns. What challenge could one primitive species pose? Still, as the meeting adjourned, a faint unease hung in the air, a premonition that change, unprecedented and unpredictable, might be stirring on the cosmic winds. First contact. Captain Thelos of the Galactic Council expedition ship Serene Inquiry stared at the battered vessel on his view screen. It was ugly, all harsh angles and exposed metal, with none of the elegance of council designs. Yet it had refused to yield, even when faced with a vastly superior foe. "Attention, unknown vessel," Thelos transmitted on all frequencies. "You are trespassing in council space. Surrender and prepare to be boarded." A snorted response crackled over the comm. "Attention, unidentified extraterrestrial assholes. You fired on us without provocation. Surrender and prepare to be blown out of the sky." Thelos' tail curled in shock at the crude language, the defiant tone. Did they not realize they were outmatched? With a flick of his claws, he ordered his gunners to fire a warning shot across the alien ship's bow. The humans fired back. A volley of primitive but powerful missiles slammed into the Serene Inquiry's shields. Alarms blared on the bridge as the ship rocked from the impact. Impossible. Their technology was centuries behind the Council's, yet they dared to engage. "Evasive maneuvers," Thelos barked. "Disable their engines." But the human ship was already moving, darting, and weaving with a speed and agility that belied its clunky appearance. It slipped behind an asteroid, using the rock's magnetic field to hide its signature. An ambush predator, Thelos realized with a chill. This was no prey species, no timid newcomer. These humans were hunters. He was still processing the implications when the human ship reemerged, cannons blazing. Its shots found the weak points in the Inquiry's shields, joints and sensor arrays, as if it had somehow analyzed their defenses in the midst of battle. Thelos had never lost an engagement. His ship was state-of-the-art, his crew the finest in the fleet. But as the humans pressed their attack, an unfamiliar emotion crept into his hearts, a cold, gripping sensation he finally recognized as fear. "Retreat," he commanded, the word bitter on his tongue. "Emergency jump now." As the Serene Inquiry fled, Thelos watched the human ship on the view screen. It didn't pursue, it had made its point. The galaxy had a new power, and the Council was no longer uncontested. The veil of secrecy. In the shadows of the Galactic Council headquarters, a clandestine meeting was underway. Figures whispered in urgent tones about the unexpected confrontation with the humans. They repelled the Serene Inquiry, but that's one of our most advanced ships. The humans used unconventional tactics, exploiting weaknesses we didn't even know we had. This cannot get out. If the lesser species learn that the Council can be defied. Agreed. We must maintain the illusion of our invincibility. The humans must be contained, studied, and if necessary, eliminated. Orders went out to suppress all information about the incident. The official story was that the Serene Inquiry had encountered a spatial anomaly. No mention was made of the humans. But behind closed doors, the Council worked frantically to gather intelligence on this new threat. Spy probes were dispatched to the edges of human space, slipping past their primitive defenses to observe and report. What they found was deeply unsettling. The humans were advancing faster than any species the Council had ever encountered. In a scant few centuries, they had gone from simple combustion engines to quantum drives, from chemical rockets to graviton beams. Their weapons, while less refined than the Council's, were brutally effective and wielded with an aggression that shocked the staid councilors. And as the probes delved into human history, they found a species forged in the crucible of constant conflict. Wars, both global and interstellar, seemed to be the crucible in which human ingenuity and resilience were refined. The more the Council learned, the greater the threat seemed. In emergency session, the councilors debated their options. Some argued for a preemptive strike to crush the humans before they could become a rival. Others counseled restraint, warning that overt aggression would only spur the humans to greater efforts. And a very few, whispered that perhaps the humans should be engaged diplomatically, that their strength could become an asset if they could be brought into the galactic community. But all agreed on one thing. The truth about humanity must be kept from the masses. The veil of secrecy must be maintained. For if the galaxy knew what the Council now knew, if they understood the potential of this rising power, then the Council's carefully cultivated aura of invincibility would be shattered forever. The Underground Alliance. Dr. Zephyr, the Argonian cynoanthropologist, paced nervously in her lab. The data scrolling across her screens was unlike anything she had seen in her centuries of study. These humans were an enigma, violent yet compassionate, primitive yet innovative, fractured yet united in the face of external threats. She nearly leaped out of her metallic skin when a chime announced a visitor. She turned to see Kira, a young Kilteri diplomat, scuttle in on her 6 legs. "You asked to see me." Kira clicked, her compound eyes reflecting the lab's glow. Zephyr nodded, gesturing to the screens. "I have made a decision. One that could brand me a traitor to the Council, but I cannot in good conscience ignore what I have learned." She took a deep breath. The humans are not our enemy, or at least, they don't have to be. But if we continue on our current path, if we seek to subjugate or destroy them, I fear we will unleash a horror beyond imagining. Kira tilted her head, mandibles twitching thoughtfully. "You propose an alliance." "I do. A secret one, for now. We must reach out to the humans, find those willing to work towards peace. We must counter the hardliners on the Council who seek war." The Kilteri was silent for a long moment. Then, with a decisive click, she said, "I am with you. Let us begin." It was a risk that could cost them everything. But as they worked, reaching out to like-minded colleagues and making whispered contact with human ambassadors, they began to uncover something even more sinister. Hardline factions within the Council, it seemed, were not content to wait for an excuse to attack the humans. They were actively working to provoke a conflict, to goad the humans into a war the Council was sure it would win. Zephyr's team raced to expose the conspiracy, to get proof to those who might stop it. They leaked intelligence to human contacts, warning of impending false flag operations. They sabotaged war fleets poised to strike preemptively. And all the while, they worked to build bridges, to foster the fragile hope that 2 very different cultures might find common ground. But time was running out. The drums of war were beating louder, the cries for human blood growing more strident. Zephyr and her allies were locked in a desperate race against the clock. For if they failed, if the hardliners succeeded in provoking the humans to full-scale war, the galaxy would tremble at the fury they unleashed. The breaking point. The first blow came without warning. Council warships, their stealth far superior to human sensors, appeared simultaneously in a dozen human systems. Before the human fleets could scramble, the Council struck at shipyards, at command centers, at the infrastructure of war. The losses were staggering. But what the Council expected to be a decapitating blow, a prelude to swift surrender, proved to be anything but. The humans, bloodied but unbowed, struck back with a ferocity that stunned their attackers. Outnumbered and outgunned, they nonetheless turned every engagement into a brutal slugging match. Their ships were slower, their weapons weaker, but they made up for it with sheer tenacity and a willingness to sacrifice that the Council could not match. At the Battle of Epsilon Eridani, a single human cruiser, the Defiant, held off a Council battle group for a full day, buying time for civilian transports to escape. The Defiant's captain, a grizzled veteran named Ada Singh, became a legend in that fight, rallying her crew with the battle cry, "We will make them remember why they fear the night." In New Algiers, ground troops engaged in vicious house-to-house fighting, the humans turning every city block into a meat grinder. Council soldiers, used to the sanitized warfare of orbital bombardment and drone strikes, found themselves in an unfamiliar hell of ambushes, booby traps, and close-quarters combat. And in the Kuiper belt of the Sol system, the human home fleet made its stand. Outnumbered 10-1, they nonetheless charged into the teeth of the Council armada. Boarding pods and suicide drones rained down on the Council ships, turning their superior technology against them. The Council had expected a quick, clean war. They had expected the humans to crumble in the face of their might. Instead, they found themselves mired in a conflict unlike any they had ever known, against a foe that seemed to grow stronger with each blow, that turned every weakness into a strength. And as the casualty reports flooded in, as the economic cost of the war skyrocketed, the Council came to a grim realization. They had not started a war. They had awakened the sleeping giant and filled it with a terrible resolve. The new galactic order. The war ground on for years, a brutal stalemate that threatened to exhaust both sides. The humans, for all their valor, could not hope to truly defeat the Council. But neither could the Council subdue the humans, not without a cost that threatened to collapse their very civilization. It was Zalek, the same High Counselor who had once dismissed the humans as primitives, who finally proposed the unthinkable: peace. The war faction resisted, but they were overruled. The Council could continue the war and win, yes, but it would rule over ashes and rubble. The humans, too, were weary of the bloodshed. They had proven their point, had burned the Council's arrogance to the ground. When the offer of a truce came, they accepted. The negotiations were long and arduous, but in the end, a new order emerged. Humanity joined the Galactic Council not as a vassal, but as an equal. Their strength and resilience had earned them a place at the table. As the galaxy began to rebuild, the secret alliance that had worked to prevent the war came out of the shadows. Dr. Zephyr and her compatriots were hailed as heroes, visionaries who had seen the potential for peace when others saw only an enemy. Under this new order, the galaxy flourished as never before. Human ingenuity and drive, tempered by Council experience and wisdom, opened up new frontiers of science, of commerce, of art. It was not a perfect peace. Tensions and rivalries remained, but there was a new respect, a new understanding between the species. The Council had learned the folly of underestimating the upstarts, and humanity had learned the responsibility that came with their new status. The galaxy had changed, irreversibly and fundamentally, and as the ships of 100 worlds sailed together into the cosmic night, as human and alien stood side by side on the bridges and in the halls of power, one truth echoed across the stars. There would always be challenges, always be fears. But together, united in their diversity, there was nothing they could not face. For in the crucible of war, a new strength had been forged, a strength that would light the way to a brighter future. And the beings who had once thought themselves the masters of all creation looked to the humans with a new emotion, one they had never expected to feel for the species they had once dismissed. Respect and hope for all that was to come.